welcome everyone. Are you having a good morning so far? All right, great. Right. So, today we're going to try to understand not what you need to do as an agile coach or what different techniques, but today we're trying to understand why we do coaching in the first place. So why coaching? Why not anything else? And dive a little bit into science. So there'll be on the more scientific side, but hopefully with my drawings and a few exercises, it's not going to be too boring, right? I'll try to do most of the talking in the beginning of the talk, and we'll finish with 20 minutes, half an hour little workshop together, right? So we'll have small exercises in between. All right, are you ready? Good. So I think I need to introduce myself. So I'm Pavel. I run a company called Think Agile. So it's my own consulting training company. I'm a certified Scrum trainer, so I can bless Scrum Masters into being with my hand. All right. So I also study psychology of coaching at Harvard University, but it all started in 2009 when I flew from a country called Belarus. You most probably don't know where it is, right? Yeah, next to Russia. All right. So a good description is next to Ukraine, Russia, and Poland, and the only difference is, well, we don't fight there. All right. In 2009, I came to South Africa, specifically to Cape Town, and joined a small company called Yellowtail, and I was a developer at that time, and they introduced me to Scrum as a process. And as usual, they gave me a 2-hour overview of Scrum, right? At the end of it, I said, well, I'm not sure if it's going to work, right? But look at me now, talking about Agile. I've been doing it for a few years now. So I started as a developer, moved to Scrum Master role, then joined a consulting company a few years back. Did a lot of consulting for different financial institutions, moved to Johannesburg, and opened my own company about 2 years ago, right? But on my journey to become an Agile trainer and Agile coach, I remember specifically one moment in my life, and let's say I was working for an oil bank. Well, because someone from this bank might be here, so I'm just going to try to make it, make it discreet, right? So, so I was working for this bank, and it was a gig to try to implement Agile for some of their teams. And they had a vendor who also had to participate in all daily scrums. And I remember specifically this one daily scrum. So this is me, right? This is me standing on one side of the board, and there's the rest of the team standing on the other side of the board. And I was such a good coach. I put a nice board together, story to do, work in progress, done, all beautiful, colorful stickies. But they weren't moving them, right? Sound familiar sometimes, right? So, and at some point I was like, what the hell? How difficult is it to move a sticky, right? I was like, well, this is how you do it. And I got quite angry. So what do you think I was thinking? I was thinking, geez, these people are stupid. Right. Yeah, how difficult is that? How difficult is to put your task, work in progress, get it done? What do you think those people are thinking about me? This guy is stupid. When is his contract going to run out, so he's going to leave the oil bank? So, little to say, my contract ended in just a few months, so I was not successful to implement Agile in that particular team. I went through a bit of a depression, I must say. I was like, well, does Agile even work in big corporate? Who works with big companies right now? Okay. Does it cross your mind from time to time? Kind of, is it even going to work? Is it the culture fit? All right. Yeah, so I had this existential crisis saying, well, what does Agile coach do? Can you actually coach someone in a big company, especially if they're stupid, right? All right. And then you realize maybe there's differences in the approaches we use, right? So we talked about coaching. I said, well, training. So I'm a trainer as well. What other approaches can we use in working with our clients? Just help me out. Yeah? Shut up. Mentor. Right, that's a good one. Mentor. All right, you can be a mentor, mentoring. What else? Lead by modeling, right? Leading by example, modeling. Servant leadership. Practice. Reflections, yeah. Facilitation is kind of part of facilitation, right? And consulting, right? My favorite one. All right. There's all those different ways of working with agile teams, and all those different approaches to that, and effectiveness of different methods is also different. And so I specifically wanted to figure out, how is agile coaching different from everything else? How is coaching different from training? How is coaching different from consulting? And I found a really good definition. So coaching is something I call facilitated development, right? So it's not about you, it's about the other person. You're providing a service for them to grow and get better, right? So that's facilitated development. It's not a mandate. Someone says, well, go implement Agile. It's kind of broader, right? So go help this person to be better. And also discovered coaching is, in a way, very similar to therapy, right? And we often talk about, when we do when Agile coaching goes well, we often feel like, well, was I in a therapy session right now? Right? Feels good, but maybe it's something that psychiatrists should be doing. All right, so if we look at mental health, if I can rate it from -10 to 0 to 10, and I rate -10 to 0, someone has a mental disorder, right? Dual personality disorder, chronic depression, anxiety, all sorts of things. So therapy actually fits here, right? So we're working with people who need help because they mentally have some challenges or they're not well. But what do we call working with people from 0 to 10, right? Let's say someone at 1. You're otherwise mentally healthy. There's nothing wrong with you, but you're definitely not feeling your best, right? So that's where coaching actually fits. So coaching is, and that's why it's so similar, we're using a lot of the same framework, but working with healthy people instead. Okay? So let's do that. Let's break it into exercise. You need to find a piece of paper, and you need to find yourself a pen or some sort of writing utensil. So hopefully, share if you can. Give you 30 seconds for that. I just need a small piece of paper. Post-it note is good size. Got it. Awesome. Does anyone need, so there's a help from the back? Okay. All right. Okay. Sharing is caring. Love it. All right. Hopefully by now, most of the people have got a piece of paper or a Post-it note or some sort of writing device. You can also type it on your laptop or phone. So what I want you to do, because, well, it's coaching, right? And coaching is all about facilitated development. I want you to think of your improvement goal, something you want to introduce in your life. So an improvement goal. It doesn't have to be anything about work or Agile in general. It can be anything, right? The only few constraints, I want you to think of not a result or outcome. So in other words, I don't want you to say, I want to lose 10 kilos, because it's a very specific outcome. What would be a better example, sort of losing 10 kilos? Eat healthy, go into gym, have a healthy life. So that's better. So it also needs to implicate you, right? So you have to be in your improvement goal. So you can't have an improvement goal saying, I wish my wife cooked better. Right, so don't do that. Okay, so just do it to yourself. And it must be important to you. So if you, at the end of writing, if you write it and rate it from 0 to 5, on the scale of importance, it should be about 4 to 5. Okay, so something which is important to you. And the last one, don't stay negative, state affirmative. So, so don't say, I want to stop eating after 6, because it's just want to stop doing something. It's a negative. What do you want to start doing, right? So I want to start eating healthy once again. So I'm giving you 2 minutes, and write your improvement goal down. You don't have to show it to anyone. Just write it down. It's good. It's kinesthetic learning, so commitment, writing something down. All right, so hopefully by now you created an improvement goal, right? And it's your private one, but usually in the group there's a few brave people. Anyone wants to share? Anyone wants to share? Yes.
I've got a personal project.
Yes.
Well, 2 of them that I'd like to commit to contributing towards every single day.
All right, that's a good one, right? So contribute to my projects every single day, right? So it's a nice commitment. Who else? Great. Yes. Learn exponentially faster, so increase your way of learning. Great, well done. Who else? Yes. Eat healthy, yes, absolutely. Good goal, right? I think we all wish to have the same goal. Who else? Yes, from the back.
Yeah, I find that the conversations that our office need people to help them get the value out of it. And I wanted to be a better facilitator of conversations.
Brilliant, beautiful. I want to be a better facilitator, at work. All right, so you all got it. So I'm happy, right? So no one said, anything about their wives. That's good. And you'll be asking me, so why am I giving you those live goals? And no one actually, so very little people actually come up with work goals. Most people in my workshops come up with something about their life, right? Like eating healthy or stop eating after 6. So what about the crazy idea? A crazy, absolutely crazy idea. What if I tell you that implementing Agile is oddly similar to helping people quit smoking or eating healthy? What if I say that waterfall is actually some sort of a habit? We just got used to doing the same thing over and over again. We've been taught this way. And now this Agile is a new habit. And sometimes it's just hard for us to stop doing one habit and start doing something else. And what if I tell you, when you're usually stressed, you tend to reverse back to old habits, right? We're all very good at doing Agile when everything is hunky-dory, velocity is up, everyone is attending, delivery deadline is in 6 months. But if the deadline moves closer to, next week, for some reason we all put in the hat of a traditional project managers, traditional managers, and doing waterfall. What if I tell you it's not that different from smoking? It's all easy not to smoke when everything's going well in your life, but you crave for a cigarette as soon as you get some sort of a stress. All right? So maybe because it's so similar, we can actually use a lot of the domain and framework developed in psychology already to help us understand how to work with people in Agile, helping them on that Agile journey. Okay, crazy idea, but let's see. Let's go for it. So if I'm talking about habits, obviously I need to go deep inside of the brain and understand how brain works and understand a little bit about neuroscience. Hopefully not going to get you too bored about it. I really shortened this section because every time people are like, oh, it's too much. But so basically, neurons are the cells in the brain. They connect together and they create habits. And the stronger your connection in the brain, the stronger your habit, right? And there's a concept called neuroplasticity saying this is a process of your brain rewiring yourself. So you want to stop smoking, then you have to actually actively rewire your brain and connect neurons in a new neural pathway, all right? And I really suck at explaining neuroplasticity, so I actually got a video for you.
Not so long ago, many scientists believed that the brain did not change after childhood, that it was hardwired and fixed by the time we became adults. But recent advances in only the last decade now tell us that this is simply not true. The brain can and does change throughout our lives. It is adaptable, like plastic. Hence, neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. How does neuroplasticity work? If you think of your brain as a dynamic, connected power grid, there are billions of pathways or roads lighting up every time you think, feel, or do something. Some of these roads are well-travelled. These are our habits, our established ways of thinking, feeling, and doing. Every time we think in a certain way, practice a particular task, or feel a specific emotion, we strengthen this road. It becomes easier for our brains to travel this pathway. Say we think about something differently, learn a new task, or choose a different emotion. We start carving out a new road. If we keep travelling that road, our brains begin to use this pathway more, and this new way of thinking, feeling, or doing becomes second nature. The old pathway gets used less and weakens. This process of rewiring your brain by forming new connections and weakening old ones is neuroplasticity in action. The good news is that we all have the ability to learn and change by rewiring our brains. If you have ever changed a bad habit or thought about something differently, you have carved a new pathway in your brain and experienced neuroplasticity firsthand. With repeated and directed attention towards your desired change, you can rewire your brain.
All right, so that's interesting. So basically we're saying, well, even, you can teach the old dog the new trick, right? So that's what I've got from this video. And also, well, I need to carve something out in my brain. So that's what she said, right? So if I go back to Agile, so I guess I need to carve more Agile into the brain and less waterfall. And that's called neuroplasticity. And it's a fascinating topic because there are actually studies, scientific studies, showing that people who get into a car accident or some sort of accidents and lose parts of their brain responsible for, let's say, movement in your left body, you completely lose the brain, part of the brain which controls that. But with time, you can rewire your brain that it learns how to control your left part of your body again. So brain, in a way, we need to think of it not as just specific senses responsible for specific activities or emotions, but actually it's very plastic, and you can, if you're 80 years old, you can learn the new things, and you can learn new behaviors, and you can learn new. Okay, that's interesting. So my pen is going to die soon. All right. So what I'm hearing is, so we need to make Agile a much stronger neural pathway than waterfall. And there are two different types of neuroplasticity. There's something called chemical neuroplasticity and something called structural neuroplasticity. So chemical neuroplasticity is the ability of your brain to direct resources to a particular part of it so you get good at it. I'll give you an example. Have you ever tried to juggle, right? And more you juggle on that day, the better you become. Have you ever tried playing tennis and serving? And more you practice in that practice session, you'll get good at it. But the bad news, the next day, for some reason, you're bad again, right? So it happens to you, right? Oh, wait, I'll give you an example from Agile. How about we all teach together how to write user stories, and everyone's doing so great in the training, but comes Thursday, 2 days after the training, no one remembers how to write user stories. What's that? Well, that's chemical neuroplasticity, right? People are really good at directing the glucose in their brain into a particular part of it so they can, that particular part of the brain gets better. But what we're after when we coach Agile is actually structural neuroplasticity, is that strong neural pathway which you will not forget how to do, right? That muscle memory, we call it muscle memory sometimes. The bad news, it's not like chemical ones. So you can't just take a pill and learn Agile. So structural neuropathway takes 6 to 12 months. Usually takes 6 to 12 months to develop. Hold on, what am I saying? I'm saying in order to implement Agile in one team, in one brain, I need to spend 6 to 12 months. So I can't teach Agile in 2 days? Damn it, right? So that's one way neuroplasticity actually explains those Agile maturity models and fluency and stuff like that, right? It takes a long time for organization to actually learn, right? Because it takes a long time for brains to rewire themselves.
It's a good line for consultants.
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe I am a consultant. So you buy my service for 6 to 12 months. But it doesn't matter how you practice, right? You can practice yourself as long as you have enough motivation to practice for 6 to 12 months. So the biggest problem with organization I work with is just we don't get enough motivation to keep us going for 6 to 12 months. It's almost like a New Year's resolution. In corporates, it's more new financial year resolution, right? Let's buy more training. So, so we need to understand how to keep people motivated for 6 to 12 months to get them to rewire their brains so they have a sustainable habit of doing Agile. Okay, is it interesting so long? Okay, good. So I need another fancy concept, something called basic or innate psychological needs, right? We all have basic physiological needs. What that? Water, right? Food, air, sleep. But our brains are quite complicated structures, so they also have basic psychological needs. So our brains need autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Very similar to what Daniel Pink was saying, right? If you remember that. This one is actual study done by PhD, so PhD professors in American universities. And so the theory called self-determination theory. So they say, in order to appeal to someone's mind, you need to give them autonomy, competence, and relatedness. What's autonomy? Autonomy, freedom to do something, right? So be free. Give someone a bigger box so they can make decisions. What's competence? Well, confidence, being able to feel confident in doing something, right? So if I'm not feeling competent in implementing Agile, I'm probably not going to feel well. And relatedness. To know that I'm not the only person doing it. Have you heard, if you ever done a training, if you ever tried to convince someone to do Agile, the first question they're going to ask you, who else is doing it? Right? Yeah. So when I train executive at a bank, they'll ask me, which other bank is doing it? It's relatedness. I don't want to be the only one doing it. But it's also going to the small level, right? If you are the only person in 30,000 organization doing Agile, it's probably a difficult task. And if you don't fulfill those basic psychological needs, people get into the state of depression, right? So their general well-being decreases, right? So let's look at them. So autonomy, competence, and relatedness. And I want you to think in groups now. So I want you to split it into groups of 2 or 3 people in your table. And I want you to think in your practice, Agile practice, think of an example where you satisfied someone's basic psychological need, and how did it work for you? Right? So let's give it 3 minutes. So how did you satisfy someone's basic psychological need, competence, relatedness, or autonomy, and how did it work for you? You don't need to do all 3. You can pick one and say what happened. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So I also asked Carl to be a runner for me in the room. So I want to get a few examples. And you can put your hand up. Carl's going to give you a microphone, and we can all hear you. All right. Here you go. Here's at the back. And on the side.
So do you want our examples of autonomy, competence, and relatedness in a team or something?
So the one you're most proud of, just an example of one or
Okay.
many. So it's kind of up to you what you want to share with the group.
I have a team that I started off with from their inception, and it's sort of like we were able to foster a very good environment where it's sort like I started relatedness. They can't relate to anyone. They're the only people in the company that do what they do, but in that they find inspiration in wanting to take it to other people and teach them. They want to create relatedness, and they're very happy about sharing what they know. The competence was very difficult, actually, because there were junior developers that were introduced into a system and they weren't given a mentor. They were basically told, here's a system, figure it out. And they're very proud of the fact that through about a year of trial and error, they were able to better on the system that they were given, just simply through teaching themselves that competency. And the autonomy, when I got introduced to them as more of a managerial guidance role as opposed to a developer, I basically told them, guys, I'm not going to tell you what to do.
Yes.
You know more about the system than I do, despite the fact that I was a developer with you when we started. You have more competency in this than I do any day of the week. If you want to ask me questions, cool. I negotiate with the clients about what priority to take with stuff, so I'll give you a priority. Figure it out.
Yes.
If you need help, ask, but go for it.
Yeah, so that whole point of self-organization in Scrum is built on the need of autonomy. It's brilliant. So should we give them a round of applause? Yes. All right. Good.
Hi. So our scenario spoke to two members in a team.
Yes.
Same team, same function, same role. The one guy's flying, he's a designer, and he's absolutely flying, nailing it, hitting the ball out of the park. And so the perception within the team is high levels of competence and therefore high levels of autonomy, as well as high levels of relatedness within the team. More work goes to him. The other designer, he's had a few misses recently, and so his perceived competence is lower in the team, less autonomy, more micromanagement, and less of the good work goes to him. So the relatedness within the team has decreased as well.
Yes. Yes. Good example, right? So it's showing how some people, when the needs are satisfied, do really well, and some people struggle a little bit. Yeah. So give them a round of applause to that team. All right. And maybe one more example at the back there.
So what I try to do when I meet up with my group of devs is be the first to admit that I don't know what I'm doing.
Yes.
And I don't.
Yes.
And none of us do. And that always opens up the floor for a genuine conversation about what needs to be done. So relatedness.
Yes. Okay, well done. Yes. So being humble is actually appealing to someone else's competence, right? So I don't know, you know, help me out. So I'll give you a few personal examples. So autonomy, when I work with my clients, coaching teams. I do not coach teams. I coach Scrum Masters and product owners. Right? So primarily working with the Agile leaders within the team, because that would be quite bad if I come to stand up and in front of a Scrum Master say, you're not doing it right. You need to do it better. So my preferred way of working is autonomy through Scrum Masters and product owners, because I will leave in a few months or a few weeks, and you'll stay, and you have to feel this autonomy of making the decisions in the team. All right? Competence, maybe it's a perverted example of competence, but it's an interesting one. Let's talk about Agile certification, right? So why certification? Everyone hates certification, saying, it doesn't add anything, right? But why everyone still loves certification as well? Certification appeals to your need of competence, right? The moment you go on the training, get the certificate, and write the exam and get the certificate, magic happens. For some reason, you feel more competent in doing that. So I often use it as a trick, right? So get someone certified so they feel competent going back into their company actually doing things. Interesting way of thinking about it, perhaps, right? And relatedness, we talked about that already. I talked about executives, ways it hasn't been done before, but it also about team members. So there was an example of, no one else doing it, right? It's just our team. Well, someone else somewhere else doing it, right? So I encourage teams to create Agile coaching circles, or some sort of support groups or community of practice within our organization where everyone can talk about each other's challenges and problems. Interesting thing about relatedness. When you tell someone about your problem, and now someone else says, I have the same thing, it didn't solve your problem, but for some reason it made you feel a little bit better. Because someone else got the same problem. Yay, I'm not the only one. Crazy, right? So sometimes all you need is not to solve your problem, but to hear that you're not unique. You're not the only one. You're not the stupid one, right? Right. And if you can't find those people in your organization, do some sort of an agile tourism. Go to other companies and see how they do that so you can get that relatedness. An interesting thing about me so I went to Spotify in June in their Boston office. An interesting thing about Spotify, I realized they're ordinary people. There are no unicorns and heavenly rainbows, and they're not flying in the skies doing Agile. They're the same people, and they have the same problems. So that was the biggest discovery for me, and it did make me feel good because I'm like, so we are not the only one who's struggling with other companies, right? Is everyone in the same boat? So let's remind us. So we said coaching is facilitated development, right? In order to facilitate development, you need to facilitate creation of new neural pathways. It's neuroplasticity. And in order for us to sustain the structural neuroplasticity for a long time, we need to understand basic psychological needs. And now we're moving into motivation. So hopefully I didn't lose anyone. So now we're into motivation. So how can I keep someone for a long time doing Agile? So Desi and Ryan, the creators of soul determination theory, also came up with 4 different motivation types. So all 4 are extrinsic motivations, but 2 of them external extrinsic. External. So I can't talk and write at the same time. And 2 internal. All right, so we're going to go through each of them. I'll give you examples. In fact, I'll give you 2 examples. I'll give you an example from Agile, and I'll give you we'll do an example together from, I want to stop eating cake. Right, that's a good example, right? So how do you motivate yourself to stop eating cake? All right, so let's start with external regulation. The weakest one, it's purely driven by reward and punishment, right? And it usually doesn't work, or doesn't work for a long time, so there's poor maintenance. Here's an example. I will get my bonus if 10% of projects are Agile by the end of the financial year. It really exists. I worked with this organization this year. I went to do an Agile training for the executive team. They hated Agile before even learning about it, because there was already this external motivator. You're going to get a reward, or you're going to get a punishment, right? You're not going to get your bonus. What's an example of eating a cake? How would we externally motivate ourselves? How do we use external regulation? Help me out. Yeah, I love it. When I eat cake, I get fat. But that's how I'm only honest. That's how we motivate ourselves. If I keep eating cake, I'm going to get fat. And it's my punishment for eating cake. So I'm not going to get fat if I don't eat it. That's my reward. Doesn't work for a long time. You're laughing at me. But you know it's true. All right, let's look at the introjection. Let's look at introjection. Introjection, you swallow the regulations without even digesting them. And it usually inflicts some sort of self-worth, inner critic, imposter syndrome if it's been for a long time. let's look at this. If I don't get 10% of my projects to be agile by the end of financial year, I must be a bad manager. What's an example with a cake? So help me out. So how can we get this inner critic talking? Yes. Are you going to ask a question?
No, I was going to give an example. So if my child isn't the top of their class, I must be a bad parent.
Yes. That's, if my child not doing on top of this class and this class and this class, I'm failing as a parent, right?
You could also say if my child is on the top of this class and attends all of the sports, my child's going to go insane.
Yeah. So you're still a bad parent.
So I was going to say,
Yeah. So introjection is usually, not a good one. So let's get an example for the cake. Yes. Yeah, so I'm a failure. I can't stop eating cake. I'm a failure. I'm a bad human being. I'm less worthy than others. Look at her. She's looking fine and she's eating cake. I've got bad genes. I can't stop eating cake. I'm a failure. All right, so identification. That's a little bit better one, right? So it's more an internal side. So you recognize and accept the value of the behavior, but you still think it's a bit of instrumental to reaching some other goals. So example from Agile, I love Agile because it reduces attrition rate and increases delivery of job satisfaction in my team. I don't love Agile. I love what Agile brings me. So it's higher delivery, lower attrition rate. Give me an example with the cake. It's our favorite, right? So you're doing great so far. So what would be?
I don't love eating cake, but when I eat it, I get energetic.
Okay. So that's an opposite behavior. So you want to convert. So what, like, stop eating cake, right? So yeah.
By not eating my cake,
Yes.
I managed to keep my weight in the
Yes. Because there's a wedding in December, right? So I'm going to that wedding in December. You see how not eating the cake is instrumental to something else, which is your real goal, is to look good at the wedding. Wedding in December. By not eating the cake, I'll, lose weight to look good. So that's my goal. What happens after December? Or on the wedding day. Yeah, so it doesn't work. Doesn't work all the time.
sorry, so is this like loving something due to its byproducts, but not actually loving the thing itself?
Yeah, so instrumental. So it allows you to do something else or allows you to achieve something else.
So it's like, I love my parents because they give me money, but I don't actually love my parents.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting one. We can we might have to have a therapy session after that. I'm joking. Less what? Less yummy. More I eat cake. Yeah, so it's kind of, well, I actually don't like the... Yeah, so I don't like eating this type of cake for a long time because I kind of get used to it. But the problem with that is, well, there are all other sorts of types of cakes, and you do like them as well. Or chocolate, yeah, find a substitute. So I'll show you the best one. So best one is integration. You define the value, but it also becomes part of yourself, inner self. So it's actually part. The value itself is part of you. We implemented Agile because I love working in collaborative environments where everyone's opinions matter. I am Agile. Agile is part of me. I'm choosing Agile because that's my value system, right? Okay, let's do an example with the cake. So it's probably, we're having so much fun with that, so I'm excited. So you're going to nail that one. So give me an example of integration for the cake.
I love eating a cake because it gets people together and functions.
Okay, so that's you. That's on the other side of it. There's nothing wrong with eating the cake. Yeah. And if you decided to give up cake, so yeah. Because you're selling it.
So I'm taking away from my
Yeah, so I'm gonna make, but it's still instrumental. So it's still instrumental. So you,
I'm not eating cake because it made me diabetic and now I can not eat it and not get sick.
and you're gonna die. It's still instrumental. So you don't want to die. That's why you don't eat the cake. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's not about the cake anymore. It's about being healthy. I'm Lucy, the health chick in the office. Everyone knows and everyone identifies myself with a piece of a carrot running around the office. That's who I am. You see, it stops being about the cake. It starts being about some other behavior. You know, we build this neuroplasticity for another habit, another behavior. All right, I hope you had fun with that. I want you to return to your improvement goal and by yourself, to that improvement goal, which you haven't implemented yet. How are you right now motivating yourself? How are you motivating yourself? Is it external regulation? Is it introjection? Is it identification? Or is it integration? Right? So I'm giving you 2 minutes just to reflect and also think, what could be a better way? What could serve as a better way as a motivator? All right, so let's do 2 minutes. All right. All right. How many of you right now in the room use external regulation right now? Any external regulations? Thank you for your honesty. Yes, thank you. Introjection, inner critic, okay. Integration, identification, okay, if you identification, integration, all right. All right, cool. Looks like the no estimate talk is starting now. I hope it's no estimate talk. It's not me saying something. So but why would you do the exercise? Was it hard to think of another way of motivating yourself, right? So that's what coaching is about, is finding the new ways of motivating yourself, right? So sometimes when we think with our executive control part of our brain, which is in prefrontal cortex, we only think irrationally. Sometimes we need to think in another part of the brain to come up with better insights and solutions. Or other way around. If you're more reflective, then you do that. So there are a lot of frameworks developed in terms of creating your insights and creating different ways of thinking about your problems and your improvement goals. So there's the creates framework, which kind of sounds cheesy. So she obviously tried to find the words to fit the creates framework. But anyway, Carson is a PhD, so what am I supposed to say? And also, you know, there's different ways of like mind wandering and open awareness and collaborative brain and thinking, evaluating. So coach tries to shift the brains between different modes of operation in order to create insights for better ways of motivation. So I'm going to finish with the next 15 minutes of talking and we'll do a bit of a practice. So now we come down to particular techniques, how to create those moments of creativity in your clients. So the first one is open-ended inquiry, and you might have heard of that. It's called powerful questions. Right? If if I rate the question in terms of the power, which question do you think is the least powerful? What type of questions are the least powerful? Yes or no questions, right? Because you only get the answer yes or no. My favorite in coaching, well, have you tried this? And you have two options, two answers, right? Yes, I've tried this, it doesn't work. Or no, I haven't tried it, but I don't like it, right? So yes or no questions really don't work. Then the questions who, when, and where. Questions coaches use most of the time are how and what, right? You know the cheesy one, how does it make you feel? Right, it's from that opera, right? The most powerful is the why question, but you see it's separate because of danger, because it might feel like you're interrogating someone or you're doubting someone. Like, so why is it important for you? Right, it kind of sounds weird as a question. You can even construct a whole coaching conversation based on the powerful questions, right? So there's an example. So what's going well in your life? What makes you thrive? What's the gap between your vision? What are the key challenges? What are the insights? And what's your commitment goals? So you can do that. But the problem with questions is, well, sometimes if you just ask questions, it more sounds like an interview, right? So how does it make you feel? I'm like, oh, shut up. I don't want to talk about how does it make me feel, right? So what's a better technique than powerful questions? You use powerful questions, that's good. But the better technique than powerful questions are reflections. And you usually want to offer 3 more reflections to one question. So you don't want to be a parrot asking questions all the time. You actually want to offer reflections. Reflections is the statement which reflects back to what your coachee or your client just said. So let's look at examples. Simple reflection. How would you know what I'm going through? Let's say clients say, how would you know what I'm going through? You've probably never even done an agile transformation in an organization of our size. Have anyone heard this question before or type of, yeah. And what's our normal response to that? A normal response is, but me, but I've done this and this. But what is your client really telling you? Your client is really telling you, well, I'm not, it's a lot at stake, so I'm not sure, if I'm making the right decision. So instead, offer a simple reflection. You feel that I don't have enough experience to help you. And the response is going to be magic, right? Because they're going to contradict themselves. Say, no, that's not what I said. But I do feel like there's a lot at stake, right? So that's what I'm worried about. You get into the root cause analysis of what actually is going on in this person's brain. You won't believe me. You probably won't use simple reflections. But if you do, and magic happens, you send me an email saying thank you, okay? All right. You can also offer amplified reflections. How would you know what I'm going through? You've probably never done an agile transformation in an organization of our size. You make it bigger. You feel that's impossible for your company to implement Agile. Right? That's a big one, right? So, you feel like Agile is not for you. And once again, you're going to take your client to actually take your side. You're going to direct your client into actually contradicting himself or herself and help you out. What about a double-sided reflection? This company is gigantic and it's full of red tape. It will probably take too much effort to get the full benefits on Scrum. We might need to do a hybrid approach. Who've heard that before? Yeah? Instead of shouting at them and calling them stupid, as I was telling you earlier, you can offer a double-sided reflection. Well, you know it will be a challenge because that's what they tell you, right? So they say, there will be a lot of effort, so I'm not sure as a person I want to go through this effort, but we realize the benefits of Agile, so we actually, we need this organization to transform. So you say, well, it will be a challenge to implement Agile in this company, but you also know it's important to increase your team's efficiency. So which one is important, more important? Efficiency or being safe and fluffy and comfortable in your company? And final one, shifted focus reflections. You're an expert in the field. I pay you. Now tell me what I have to do. Who've heard that before? I hear it all the time, right? Instead of, it's a trap. It's a trap for you. They're trapping you. Instead of doing that, you have to shift the reflection, right? You have to shift the focus of the conversation. I'm more interested in what you want to do. I would like to find a way to help you to get through the situation. Tell me what's important to you, right? Shifting it back, the ownership back. Because the moment you fall into this trap of saying, you should do this, it becomes your accountability, not your client's accountability. All right, so use more reflections than questions. So the third one is mindfulness. You might have heard of that. Sounds cheesy, but it's really working well. It's ability of you and your client to switch between different types of awareness. Narrow awareness is focusing on one small thing. It's very easy to accomplish. Like if I say, well, sit on your chair and think about your breathing, right? So that's a narrow awareness. You're just shifting the focus of your brain to one particular part. Open awareness is, well, clear it up, look broad, right? So sometimes we want to explore. And meta-awareness is, how does it make you feel, right? So that's the meta-awareness is, what feelings you're going through. It's an interesting one. So the awareness is, you are being affected all the time. You can't practice awareness, full meta-awareness every day, every single day. I flew from Orlando last Sunday, and as being jet lagged, I really had to go and see the client. And so I just was not in the right mood. I was hungry. I was jet lagged. I got into the meeting. I was so irritated, and I couldn't bring myself to meta-awareness. I couldn't bring myself to kind of control myself. So I've been into the situation, you're stupid, no, you're stupid, just last Monday. Why? Because I was not in the right mind, right? So sometimes you should actually go and eat something or not coach on a day, right? So I've learned this Monday, right? So that's all about being able to actually create this awareness. Yes.
Would you say meta-awareness is the same as, so hypothetically, you have a product owner and they're having trouble connecting with the team
Yes.
because they keep seeing, I'm the business representative, this is my project, I'm the one who's held accountable, me.
Yeah.
Would meta-awareness also qualify as trying to get the product owner to sort of open themselves up to what does the team feel about this, how does your actions impact them, that kind of thing, sort of make them see the other side of the picture?
Yeah. So getting them to think what other people think is open awareness, kind of open broader. Getting them to think how other people perceive them is meta-awareness. So if you were recording this person, right, and you show the recording back to them, and they're like, oh, that's what I'm doing. So that's a meta-awareness. Like, oh, that's what I'm doing. Yeah. So the last one. So let's talk about empathy. So there's multiple different things. There's pity, there's sympathy, there's many different words, right? And there's empathy. In coach-client relationship, you definitely don't want to use pity. So you don't want to say, oh, poor thing, your wife left you, oh, shame. It's not going to make your client any better, right? You actually establish your superiority, which is never a good thing. If you're a servant leader in coaching and you suddenly become superior in the conversation, that's a disaster. Sympathy is, well, I feel what you feel because I've been to the same situation, right? That's called emotional sympathy. So I'm with you. I feel the same way about this. It's also not a good thing for coaching because suddenly you start to be more of like friends chatting together and complaining about each other. What you really want to achieve is something people call cognitive empathy or rational empathy. I understand why you feel what you feel. I might have not been through the same experience, never be able to be through the same experience, but I do understand how it makes you feel. Just to show you an example of emotional empathy versus cognitive empathy. About 2 years ago, there was a terrorist attack in Sydney when a guy locked himself with in a coffee shop with a bunch of, bypasses. And it was all over the news. It was, it was 48 hours until they released the hostages, and a few people got killed, and it really was a traumatic experience for everyone to watch it and kind of think about it. During the same time, there was an attack on the Pakistani school where 35 pupils were killed and shot dead, right? What do you think was the percentage of coverage on CNN of Sydney attack versus Pakistan? We don't need to verbalize it, but emotional empathy, you can only exercise emotional empathy if someone looks like you, talks like you, does everything like you, right? So emotional empathy, you only empathize with people you identify with. We want cognitive empathy. We want to have rational empathy. 35 pupils is probably even more traumatic for the families of those people, right? So for the country. So it's kind of, it's an interesting one, right? So why do we sympathize with people looking like us? So I'm going to leave there. So far our journey for this talk was coaching is facilitated development. You need neuroplasticity to build new neural pathways. In order for creating structural neuroplasticity and neural pathways, we need to appeal to better levels of motivation. In order to do that, we need to use coaching tools, brain activation states and coaching tools like open-ended inquiry and reflections. So to finish up, so we do have, let's say, 15 minutes, and I'll leave time for questions. So I want you to split up into groups, and if everyone's comfortable to talk about the motivation improvement goal, get one person to be a coach, and get yourself to be a client or coachee, and practice those techniques, practice empathy, practice mindfulness, practice open-ended inquiry and reflections, and see what works out of it. So it's 15 minutes. Have fun. hope you had fun. So in terms of my contact details and slides, I just realized I didn't have slides here. So it's on SlideShare, slideshare.net, and just put my name there, so Pavel Dabrytski. All right. And if you have any questions after the conference, you want to check. Huh? No, it's gonna. Yeah, there you go, magic. Slow, it's coming back. If you have any questions after the conference as well, you need to contact me. Those are my details. We have a few minutes to answer questions. I think it's only fair if you have a few questions about the talk. So, yeah.
Please put your
Pavel, realistically, for the neuroplasticity to happen, 6 to 12 months, your experience with telling people, look, transformation will come and we'll get this new way of working into the business, but give us 6 to 12 months. Realistically, how well has that worked for you in some of the organizations?
Yeah. So, I'm a lucky one because I run a very bad schedule and I have to really see, oh, you want to have a training, so what about, February 2018? So, I'm maybe in the position where I can be picky and say, well, if you're not ready to commit to what really Agile is about. The other thing is, Agile is all about going faster. Well, it's not about going faster. It's delivering what your customer really needs. I try to manage the expectations up front. And it actually works really well for me because people who are really in Agile for the true benefits of Agile, not just because the boss told them to implement Agile or someone from, I don't know, from Turkey or from UK or from US told me you need to be Agile, then people understand that they need to be patient. Because the worst thing is you don't tell them that and you go and implement Agile and in 3 sprints time they're like, well, why is it not Agile yet, right? So that's, I think it's kind of, we owe our customers to tell them the truth. Yeah.
Okay, so it's sort of a please advise me as a mentor or something. It's something I've been playing around with in my mind for a while, but it's a very long-term commitment and it's a lot of money, so I need professional advice. Would you think it's worth getting some sort of degree or professional qualification in psychology or at least business psychology in order to enable you to be a coach better, so to actually know the workings behind people's motivations and stuff?
Yeah, so that's a good question, right? So what different paths available to you if you want to build up more on coaching? And I see many people arrive at the same conclusions as I do through my talk, but through different ways. So you can get a degree, right? So I went to an institution and I took a few courses specifically on organizational behavior. But it doesn't have to be. There are shorter courses on coaching and there are shorter programs of professional coaching like coaching institutes and associations of coaches. There's plenty of them, right? And there are good ones, there are bad ones. You just need to find a program suits your budget, suits your timeline, suits your kind of commitment. How much do you want to commit that? So, and I'm sure there's some people in the room who already have got some sort of coaching certification or accreditation. So maybe you want to share, right? So,
So there's a coaching program in South Africa. Sorry. The coaching program that I did is ontological coaching, which is really good in that it combines the way we use language and the way we use assessments to sort of drive our behavior. So it's a lot around identifying those, as well as the moods that you're sitting in on an almost permanent basis, because your moods will drive the actual thinking and the languaging that you have. And it's a 3 sessions of 6 months each. And you don't have to do all 3 of them. I mean, if you just go through the first part and the languaging part, you get a really nice structure around the coaching conversation and a lot of practice around coaching. And it is credentialed. The other one that I know Standard Bank has done and Absa Barclays has done is the Lisa Atkins course, which is also really a nice way of getting into it and understanding it a little bit better.
Yeah. So I also have a course on this topic. It's 2 days. But the biggest challenge with teaching someone coaching is, well, I can teach you the basics of the frameworks, but you still have to go back and practice it. So that's why a lot of, if you look at ICF, a lot of those programs said, well, learn a little bit and go record your practice and, have, before you get your accreditation. So, but there's plenty. So if, you can go on Lisa Atkins, you can go on mine, okay, you can go on other people's courses. It's 2 days, right? But it gives you the basics. But you have to go back and actually practice it. I think the biggest challenge is practicing coaching and getting better at it, right? But there's a range from 2 day to a 4-year, 5-year, master's degree or something like that. Yeah. All right. Good question. Did I answer that? All right. And we even got help from people in the room. I'm glad. Any other questions? Here's one. So how do you know if organizations are on board? I don't, right? Because organizations are people. All I know, there's some people within organizations are on board and they're keen, right? So I generally tend to say, no, I don't work with organizations, I work with people. So if I find a few good people saying, I'm really committed to do that, then I'll work with them, right? Because I can't say no to a person who's committed to do Agile, even their organization might not be ready, but I'll provide that support to that person. Does that answer the question?
Great, I'm not seeing any more hands.
Awesome, and I use this rule of 7, right? Do you know the rule of 7? 7 seconds? After 7 seconds, the silence becomes so unbearable that someone's going to speak up. So every time I'm asking, I'm waiting for 7 seconds before I actually move on. So those are my contact details. Now, so one more thing. I'm doing a study with Harvard University on how Agile coaching affects well-being in the workplace. So we look at well-being, right? So does Agile coaching actually helps the organizations, have some quantifiable measures? I'm in a very early stage of literature review and study design, but I'm already kind of want to have some participants. So if you're keen and your company is keen to answer a few questions, right, and help me to design, help me to get a certain number of participants for my sample to be representative, you're welcome to grab a Post-it note, write your name, email, and company, and I'll be in touch probably towards the end of the year. You can opt out at any point in time, but I just need help from the community with my study. All right, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it.